You're listening to Inside the Locker Room with Wimp and Barry Sanderson on Tide 100.9 in Tuscaloosa.
Between 78 and 81. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 53 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
Inside the Locker Room with former Crimson Tide basketball coach Wimp Sanderson and his son, former SEC and ACC assistant basketball coach Barry Sanderson. It's time to take you inside the locker room on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
You ready?
And good morning. Welcome into Inside the Locker Room here on a Thursday edition of the program. I am not Barry Sanderson. I am brand manager of Tide 100.9, Wyatt Fulton. Barry's got some things going on today, and so I'm going to help Coach Wimp Sanderson with the program today. Coach, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing fine. For our listeners, I think I want you to call in still, because I got some things I need to say and get off my mind, and I'm sure you have some to get off of yours. So I want you to call in. What we're going to do is this first 30 minutes, talk a little bit about what's going on. And then at the bottom of the hour, JC's coming on. And JC's about as good a guest as we can get. At 5 minutes after 8, after we do the commercials, we're gonna have Jack Crow on. And Jack Crow will be on for 30 minutes or so, or 35 minutes. And if you want to ask Jack Crow questions that we can't ask live, you can call the station and ask the questions, and they'll relay them to us. I think we got a heck of a show. We got a lot of good guests. You guys call in now. Don't be worried about whether Barry's here or not. It doesn't make any difference whether Barry's here or not. We've got a good show going. And, a little bit about what happened last night. Jack State murdered New Mexico. The Mexico team, of course, they transferred all their people to Vanderbilt, so they didn't have anything. It's 54-13. In baseball, we've got a few baseball listeners. The Mets beat the Phillies 4-1, and they win the series and move on. And the Yankees won 3-2, and they're 2-1. And the Dodgers 8-0, and that series is 2-2, and they'll have a playoff game. The Tigers beat my Indians 3-0, and I don't like that series right now. 2-1, the Tigers really pitch it well, so we'll see what happens there. I think one of the big stories that we're probably not going to discuss, but the loss of life. We had some loss of life in Florida with a storm, and the storm wrecked a lot of places, and just one of those things that happens with nature. And sure, sorry that everybody didn't get out of there, but some felt like they needed to stay, so they did. There's not going to be a national letter of intent. Transfer athletes can sign with a new school, and when the athletic department gives them aid, then those schools are prohibited from even talking to them now. And that doesn't happen. That doesn't mean the agents don't go to the other agents and talk to them. But you've got a problem there. The transfer deal is from 45 to 30, which takes away 20 in the days, gives you 20 days and 10 days in the spring. So that's about what they've done there. Hey, don't get on there and say anything about what the head football coach wears. That's not any problem. Head football coach tried to let you know that he was an Alabama guy, and he had Alabama on the shirt that he wore. Don't get this Goodman guy writing all this bull crap he writes. Don't do that. That's stupid. If you don't have anything better to do than to get on there and talk about how the head football coach dresses, you ain't got much to do. And so we don't particularly need that. So I will mention that too. If we have any calls, I hope we do. We've got pretty good series of games this week, today with the 12 teams, 6 teams that were playing for 12, and then Missouri playing Massachusetts. I also want to mention before I get to the game. I'll get to it now. South Carolina is at Alabama. South Carolina quarterback is just average, just running water. Alabama's 21-point favorite. Mike Schuler's coming back with South Carolina. If you'd like to hear the Mike Schuler story, I've had 2 or 3 people call me and ask me if I was going to tell what happened there. I'll be glad to. I won't get into it. Mike Schuler was pretty much busted here because of the record, and there's a reason for why all that took place. And there is also no reason for the people to be as nasty towards Mike Schuler as they were towards he and his wife in trying to get him out of here. Because football is not the end of the world, whether you think it is or not. And I worked here under 4 athletic directors: Coach Bryant, Ray Perkins, Steve Sloan, and Eddie Ingram. Those 4. I was here for the football changes. A lot of the changes when Mike came in, but I had Coach Bryant, I had Ray Perkins, had Bill Curry, had Gene Stallings, and Mike Schuler was out of here just as I was dismissed. So I can sort of tell you what happened in some of these cases if you wish. If you have any callers, I want you to call in and talk about the game tomorrow. What you think the 21? If you think the 21 points is right, a little bit high maybe, but we'll see what happens. We open up. I will talk a little bit about the games, and then we're going to turn a little bit to the broadcast last night on the when he did the radio show last night. We'll do about 5 minutes of that before the bottom of the hour. Missouri's at Massachusetts. I'd probably say to you that Missouri's maybe a little bit of a disappointment after a good start. Lost pretty handily to A&M. Not going to be probably one of the 12 teams right now. One of the teams out of the SEC, unless the defense gets a lot better. Non-conference game against Massachusetts at I think it's 11 o'clock our time. So same time that Alabama plays. South Carolina comes in here with a quarterback that's a little bit shaky. As I told you, Mike Schuler's in charge of the offensive game plan. Well liked over there and did a good job in the pros. Alabama needs to get their defense straightened out, and a lot of talk about that. A lot of talk about the alignment. Talk about Mike talking about getting in the stuff late, which I think probably wasn't necessary to say, but they wanted everybody to know that's the reason it wasn't as good. They were a little bit late getting the defenses in, and when the formations came, they weren't ready to defend them. So we'll see what happens there. You called in about the South Carolina-Alabama game. I wish you would. If you don't want to, I understand. Texas and Oklahoma. Texas' starting quarterback is going to be back starting. Oklahoma was good defensively. The game's in Dallas. I went to school at Abilene Christian for a semester, and while I was there, I went to the Texas-Oklahoma game in 19. I don't want to tell you when that was, and Oklahoma won that game. I think, God, it's been so long ago, 20-0 or something. Anyway, Texas-Oklahoma supposedly on somewhat of a neutral field, but probably leans towards Texas a little bit more than it does Oklahoma. That's a 2:30 game. Texas think 15.5-point favorite against. No, not that much. They're not that much. They're 14.5, I believe, against Oklahoma, and so got that going. Florida's at Tennessee. In Florida, Tennessee's a 15.5-point favorite. And Tennessee, I don't know that Tennessee's the Tennessee that I thought they were. I think the quarterback is good, and I may be dead wrong. The Tennessee quarterback is good. Whether he's worth the kind of money they said they gave him, I'm not sure. He runs with it pretty good, throws it at times pretty good. He may be better than I think. Florida, of course, is going to struggle against Tennessee up there, 15.5 points. I stayed off of blue plate. I got to give the blue plate after a while. So we'll see what happens there. Ole Miss at LSU. A couple of you guys that call in like Ole Miss, a couple of you like LSU. I don't know. It's 3. I think LSU gets 3.5 points. I believe that's if I can remember correctly. Ole Miss gets 3. LSU gets 3.5 points. Ole Miss is fell on their face against Kentucky. I don't know if they weren't ready to play. Kentucky's that good defensively, but Ole Miss ended up losing that game. I think they're against the wall a little bit. They need to win this one to keep from having 2 losses. Some people think they're the disappointment of the league thus far. You think what you will. Vanderbilt, Kentucky. Vanderbilt played the option well. They ran the option well. They did things well. Alabama, I don't know to say to you that they weren't ready to play. In my opinion, they weren't quite ready to play. I could be dead wrong because I wasn't there. Kentucky will handle Vanderbilt's option better than anybody, or better than Alabama did. I think Vanderbilt's a 14-point favorite or something like that. So we'll see what happens there. Any calls, Philip? Tom, anybody?
Yeah, we got a couple of calls here, Coach. Right. Kentucky's also got a sneaky good defense, so I'm interested to watch that game there as well.
They are.
But let's go ahead and jump out on the Yellowwood phone lines here. Let's talk with Philip this morning. Philip, how you doing?
Hey, Philip.
Doing good. I'm doing good, guys. Hope y'all are.
Hey, I appreciate you calling. Did you pick LSU or Ole Miss?
Well, I sort of favored Ole Miss.
Okay. All right.
I think Lane, at some point, he's got to turn the corner, and I think this is a perfect weekend for them to do it. So I'm sort of just leaning in that direction right now.
Well, I think I didn't know. I really didn't know how to lean in that direction. I was afraid of LSU playing at home was going to be a big factor, and Ole Miss is sneaky good. Phil, I don't know what you want to say, but on a lot of the radio shows, they are saying that Lane Kiffin, agent, has said that he will come to Florida for $14 million a year, and he would sign a 9-year contract. So, is in your opinion worth that?
I would say not, but at Florida he could be. He could be the guy that gets that program back to the Spurrier days. So in their view, he could be. But in our view, we're outsiders looking in. We're going to be skeptical of it. But he may be what they think the doctor ordered.
Well, that's a lot of coins, and it's something that if you tie him in there with getting your money for 9 years, regardless whether it goes good, bad, or none of the above, then you got to hire somebody else, Philip. You got a load of money. So
that's disturbing that his agent said that. That bothers me.
Yeah, that's what they're saying on the other shows. $14 million, and he wants a 9-year contract.
Well, I don't blame him for that, but I was calling because everybody's all still a little bit strung out over the Alabama loss, but I just want to say that there's so much left to be played. When you look at the top 25 and you try to sort out 12 teams that might go to the playoffs, it's hard to do.
Yeah, it is.
Iowa State's looking good at 5-0, but they've got to go to what I call Ambush City at West Virginia this weekend. And they still got to go to Kansas, and they got to go to Utah.
Yeah.
Notre Dame, though, I think Notre Dame has an easier path than just about anybody, but they still have to go to sort of a crazy little Georgia Tech environment. And they got to play Navy and Army, who are both undefeated. And I think Navy is better than Army, but they got to go there. And they go to USC. I think Penn State's in pretty good shape. I think Oregon's in pretty good shape. I think Miami's in pretty good shape. And I think Clemson's in pretty decent shape.
I do too. You think the loser of the Oregon-Ohio State game tomorrow will go if they don't lose anymore?
Well, Ohio State, they got to go to Oregon, and then they've got to go to Penn State.
And my point is that the loser of that game, will they still have a shot to go if they don't lose another one?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Okay. And the reason is because for Oregon, they've got a very doable away game schedule. The toughest one they've got out of their 3 will be Michigan, and they also go to Wisconsin and Purdue, which they should handle those.
Yeah.
And Ohio State's only got to go to Northwestern, but they do go to Penn State.
Yeah. Well, I hear the music running, but I will say this: before you hang up, I think Miami and Clemson are both going out of the ACC. That's 2.
And I'll give you another team that I think is in really good shape if they can avoid injuries, and that's BYU.
Yeah, that's right. I agree. I'll give you that today. All right, we got a break.
Yeah.
I appreciate you calling in. Thanks.
Appreciate you, Wimp.
All right. We got time for a commercial.
Yeah, Coach, we'll go ahead and take a break here. When we come back on the other side, we'll keep talking the rest of the college football slate. I know you mentioned Jacksonville State beating up on New Mexico State. That was a fun game to watch last night. And
we got a little bit of last night's stuff?
Yes, sir. We should have some of that audio, so we'll get to hear that here as well on the other side of the break on Tide 100.9 and 1230 AM WTBC, your home of Alabama Crimson Tide sports.
Here's what's trending on the Tuscaloosa thread.
Good Thursday morning. While it's raining hard in Florida, the U.S. Drought Monitor shows the drought is expanding across Alabama. Much of West Alabama in moderate drought conditions. There are currently 9 wildfires resulting from the dry conditions. 2 small ones are here in West Alabama, 1 each in Hale and Bibb counties. Click TuscaloosaThread.com for more local news, sports, and weather coverage all throughout the day. It's absolutely free. Don Hartley, Town Square Media of Tuscaloosa.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
Tuscaloosa traffic now from the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center. Noticing more volume on Rose Boulevard as you move on the southbound lanes to McFarland. You do want to watch out for possible fender bender in the area. And then we've also got some tightness on Highway 82 westbound at Daffron Road.
Starts at only $19,900. For the number 1 selling Nissan Rogue SUV, we offer discounts up to $3,000. And yes, we have 2 and 4-wheel drives in stock. See BJ or Kylan at Townsend Nissan today.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
The weather will stay dry through the weekend and through next week. The sky's sunny today. Tuscaloosa's high 82. Clear and cool tonight, the low 53. For tomorrow and Saturday, lots of sunshine both days. Highs between 78 and 81. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 52 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
The flagship station for Alabama Crimson Tide football.
Alabama touchdown.
Only on Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Welcome back to Inside the Locker Room right here on Tide 100.9 and 1230 AM WTBC. Your home for Alabama Crimson Tide sports. Coach, I want to ask you a little bit about this Ole Miss and LSU game. These are both some really good offenses here. Lane Kiffin is a guy who right now is trying to make a statement and say Ole Miss is here to compete on the national stage. People had circled this LSU game as being the potential only loss on this Ole Miss schedule. But, you know, like you said, they fell flat on their face against Kentucky. And now, is this a must-win game for Ole Miss this season?
Well, I think every game is with a loss. The Kentucky loss, I think every game's a must game because you don't know about the two losses that you would have if you have another one. And the other factor is that they played a very weak non-conference schedule. I think the athletic directors are looking to see exactly the feeling of the committee when you see who people played for in the non-conference schedule, so they can schedule the correct way in the coming years if it stays the way it's going to stay. So I think a weak non-conference schedule won't help them. I think two losses, I have no idea if that will get them in or not. It's according to what the other so-called teams that are looking to get in, the Tennessees and the Texases and people like that, Georgia, of course. All of them have a little bit of a problem. They already have a loss. Alabama has a great win and a bad loss. Certainly not good for them, but still have a shot to get in. And Georgia has a bad loss, not a bad loss to Alabama, but a loss to Alabama, and then has to go to Texas to play, and then I think that's correct. And then they have Tennessee coming to their place, so it's a topsy-turvy deal.
And they've also got to play Georgia. So, you know, Ole Miss has got to go to LSU this weekend. Then they host Oklahoma in 2 weeks after a bye week following the LSU game. But then 2 weeks after that, they host the Georgia Bulldogs. And so if you're circling that Georgia game for Ole Miss, this LSU game does seem like a must win. Because let's say they lose that Georgia game but defeat LSU, then they're 10-2. They may be on the outside looking in, depending on what the rest of the SEC does. You know, if Georgia beats Texas, Texas is then 11-1, maybe 10-2, depending on what they do against Texas A&M at the end of the year. Alabama, of course, losing that game to Vanderbilt was a game that not a lot of people, I think nobody actually predicted Alabama to lose to Vanderbilt, unless you're Clark Lee, the head coach of Vanderbilt. So a lot of these teams are playing in a lot of must-win games at this point, early in the season. I say early, we're at the mid-season point, but I think a lot of teams are kind of realizing, hey, look, this NIL, this transfer portal era, it's added a lot of parity to college football, and it's only going to add more with the changes to the national letter of intent and the transfer portal.
Well, yeah, the biggest problem we have, the biggest problem that we have right now is the transfer portal, and it's caused us more problems than anything because people are leaving for more money, and NIL is a factor. But if we had the transfer portal the way it would be a lot better. We won't have time to listen to what they said last night on the calling show. Let's take the break and get JC in on time.
Sounds like a plan, Coach. We'll talk with J.C. Sherbert on the other side of this break. He'll help us break down this Alabama-South Carolina game, and I'm sure we'll talk about the rest of the SEC here as well. You're listening to Tide 100.9 and 1230 AM WTBC, your home of Alabama Crimson Tide sports.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
Tuscaloosa traffic now from the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center. Noticing more volume on Rose Boulevard as you move on the southbound lanes to McFarland. You do want to watch out for possible fender bender in the area. And then we've also got some tightness on Highway 82 westbound at Daffrin Road.
WTBC 1230 with Wyatt Fulton and Matt Coulter, presented by BMW of Tuscaloosa, Pearl River Resort and Casino, Tuscaloosa Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, and Walk-Ons.
Road tripping, business travel, or bringing your car in for repairs. All great reasons to rent a Toyota at Tuscaloosa Toyota. You can rent the latest Toyota models for a day, a week, or a weekend. Every Toyota rental car comes with 24 hours roadside assistance.
Take control of our future. Vote Republican. Paid for by the Tuscaloosa County Republican Party, P.O. Box 2643, Tuscaloosa, Alabama 35403.
Mr. SEC Tournament Wimp Sanderson gives you his excellent analysis every weekday on Inside the Locker Room, right here on Tide 100.9.
Yellowwood Pressure Treated Pines. They do a great job allowing us to do what we do here on Tide 100.9 and more specifically Inside the Locker Room. If it doesn't have that yellow tag on it, believe me, you don't want it. Let's go ahead and head out to the Yellowwood hotline here and let's bring in JC Sherbert. JC, how you doing this morning?
Hey, JC. How you doing?
Hey, good to be with you guys.
Barry, I had to skip today, but I've got enough questions for you to take care of things because you're always so darn good. Is the situation with these teams that have a loss, the Ole Misses, the Alabamas, people like that? Ole Miss's schedule is weak. Is that going to be a factor as far as getting them to 12 if they don't lose? Now, Alabama's had a good win, good loss, a bad loss, excuse me. Where does that stand with our listeners?
Well, Coach, I think honestly, there's not going to be an undefeated team in the SEC. I think either A&M or Georgia, somebody will beat Texas, I think. And, I think that helps everybody with a loss, to be honest, because of how they value undefeated teams and with the committee. But the only precedent they've set is putting Bama in over Florida State. And so they obviously value the SEC schedule. And it is brutal this year, man. I mean, it's nobody saw Vanderbilt being good. I mean, so Vandy, Kentucky, Arkansas have all knocked off contenders.
Well, I'm a schedule freak, and I studied pretty heavily when I was coaching. When I look at Georgia, and then I look at Texas, the schedules are not even close to being the same.
No, you're right. It's not close. I mean,
not even close.
Georgia's got to go to Bama. They got to go to Austin. They got to go to Oxford.
Yeah.
What's besides A&M? I mean, and that's why they really started. Greg Sankey is focused on a lot of big picture things. They need to fix this.
That's exactly right. Thank you very much. The problem that you're having is this. Is the committee going to not realize, but are they going to be good with these people who are playing that kind of schedule versus the Texas people or other teams that are playing somebody that ended up being a lot weaker? You got, Ole Miss gets beat at home. Their schedule's okay. Alabama's schedule's fairly hard. Georgia's schedule is terrible. I just think that when you compare the Georgia-Texas deal, both of those thinking they're going to get in 1 and 2 somewhere there, it's just very, very unfair.
Yeah, and I mean that they do it. They kind of threw this one and next year's together in a lot of ways. They said it was about competitive balance, but whenever you decide, hey, look, we're going to go ahead and play all the secondary rivalries. Well, that kind of puts your puzzle, that puts all the pieces on the board, so to speak. So then you got to go and figure it out. So, Texas is Arkansas and A&M and Oklahoma. Well, that's a little bit easier draw than Georgia, who, their rivals, Florida. They want to play Auburn, but they kind of randomly got Bama and Ole Miss. This year they also did things where who hadn't played in a while and where. Yeah. So like South Carolina, for example, how the heck do you end up with LSU at home and Ole Miss at home and at Alabama? Well, they hadn't played those games since 2008 and 2009.
Yeah.
And I just think that's a stupid way to do a schedule when you care about competitiveness. But I don't know that, with all these plans going on, I don't know that they even care, the people that make decisions in college football about anybody but about 8 programs.
Well, we got transfer portal. It's thrown into an absolute ridiculous deal, which is for us. And the problem that we have, nobody realizes, is the agents. the 4% guys who are getting money to be sure that these guys, if they're not playing, move on. And then we've got the stupid four game rule where you end up, if you play 4 games, you can't be redshirted. And then you decide after 2 games that you don't want to go any further. You might want to transfer. We've almost put ourselves in a bad pickle there.
That's the worst thing that's happened, really. I mein, I thought leaving after spring practice was bad, but this leaving after 4 games thing because somebody's in your ear about money. I said, there's 2 solutions. The NCAA could pass a rule that if everybody just gets 5 years. If you're injured, and you lose a year and you've already redshirted, you can just go through the process like a lot of people do, with the hardships. But there's no more redshirting. You just have 5 years to play.
Yeah.
And that's that. That eliminates it. But then you also have a situation where if I'm a coach, I'm just not going to take it. I'm just going to, it's going to take something like that. If they don't change the eligibility calendar to 5 years, it's going to take coaches just saying, if you opted out on your team 4 games in, you're not coming to play for me. And frankly, why would you want a guy like that guy, Bear Alexander out at SC? Yeah. He's been in college how long? If he's that good, go to the NFL.
Yeah, that's right. The coaches where he wants to go to, they all say no. And, keep this thing down just a little bit. I think just jumping around as much as they do is a brutal thing. It's 2 teams it seemed hard for me to say that Oregon's in the Big Ten, but I will. Is the loser of the Oregon-Ohio State game tomorrow, without another loss, will they have a shot to get in, the loser of that game?
I think yes. But it also kind of depends on what Penn State does. And maybe they throw the Big Ten a bone and give them 3. I mean, this is another thing about the playoff selection. You got to watch. Everybody always includes the Big Ten in their conversations about the SEC.
Yeah, right.
The Big Ten ain't the SEC. Minnesota is not Arkansas. I mean, I'm sorry. So I mean, you're going to put let's say Georgia loses close to Texas and trips up at Ole Miss, right? They're 9-3. There's no way on earth 10-2 Oregon or 11-1 Penn State deserves to be in over that team.
No.
I'm sorry, and I love Illinois. I love the programs and the fans, but they're just not as good. I mean, you got to give them a break. But I think the loser of that one, just because their starting point this season was still good. And Ohio State. I just said something negative about the Big Ten. I'll say something positive. Ohio State can come in the SEC and compete with anybody.
Sure.
I don't know about Oregon, but, so if they happen to trip up out there, I don't think they will. But if they happen to, I think they still got a shot.
Well, I'll use the word probably rather than yes, but I would guess that Miami and Clemson are going to come from out of the ACC. Now, Clemson might not, but I think Miami is good enough where they're not going to trip up. Quarterback, they bought them a good quarterback, and I know a lot of schools that wish they had bought him. But I think there's a good shot those 2 teams will come out of the ACC.
Yeah, here's a kid, Cam Ward at Miami, that signed with Incarnate Word and played at Washington State. He's the best player in college football. So there's your star ratings. I don't know he's the exception, not the rule, but boy, he's really good. Miami's got to quit living dangerously, man. They could easily be sitting on 2 losses right now.
Yeah.
To Virginia Tech and Cal. I mean, that was a gift from the league against Virginia Tech, and then Cal was just a great comeback. But you know why they're able to come back? You mentioned it, Cam Ward, their quarterbacks. And Miami, all these years, they've had some pretty bad coaches. And some pretty good coaches, to be honest. But what have they been missing since the 80s and 90s? A quarterback.
Yeah.
There's no Vinny Testaverde, none of that, but they got one now, and you see what happens.
Yeah, they had Jimmy Johnson, they had Howard Schnellenberger, they had some good people.
Yeah.
You don't deal, but we got Alabama listeners that are all worked up about Alabama defensively. I'm not trying to decide whether Alabama was ready to play or not, because that's not my job. I'm not sure they were, but they're all shot in the butt, and I need to at least let you talk a little bit about the feelings of people, yourself and other people, about Alabama defensively and sort of where Alabama's going in this race.
Yeah, I mean, they need to have a good game this weekend. It's 6 quarters. I don't think it's just a Vandy game. You know, Vandy holds the ball on you like that. I mean, they're like playing Princeton in basketball, you know, ball control. 42 minutes they had it. Bama had it 17, scored 35 points. But Bama folks aren't accustomed to playing defense like that. Even in the years where Bama was sort of high scoring, they'd get off the field and do things like that, especially against, you know, a team that's probably not as talented or definitely not as talented. They just got out-coached. And I listened to Kane Womack's press conference this week, and, you know, he kind of admitted it. He's like, well, they did some things we didn't expect and blah, 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 blah. And I've heard that from coaches a lot this year. My thing is this. I understand that, but you got to adjust. I mean, you know, assistant coaches make a lot of money. And it's not just Alabama. I've heard, oh, they surprised us. Well, shoot, maybe, you know, that's probably something everybody should write down. You know, don't you think, Coach?
Well, I think you need to go back. You need to go back and look at the way he played before he ever got to Vanderbilt, and be darn sure that you know what he likes to do. And I'm not so sure they just took the film that they looked at Vanderbilt, and he didn't do many of those things, and they Kill came in there with, and I got to give the Vanderbilt guy credit. His ego, the head coach, his ego wasn't so big that he brought in the quarterback and also brought in his coach, and that's pretty darn good.
And coordinator and
and I think I'm bringing in the guy who's going to run the offense. I'm also bringing in the 2 coaches that made the offense successful, and for the head coach at Vanderbilt, who, you know, it's a hard job. Nobody appreciates what they do. Yeah. That's a pretty good thing to pass your ego and do that.
Hey, that's the hire of the off season, I think, because
I think it is.
They were in trouble. They lost all their defensive players. They're not that good on defense. Guys are hitting the portal left and right. But then, I mean, the guy took New Mexico State down to the Plains and beat them by 3 touchdowns. I mean, you're looking for an equalizer. That's that guy and that team and that quarterback. I mean, man, the state of Alabama is probably ready to see them go after the last 2 years. But, yeah, I'm happy for Clark Lee. Barton Simmons is a friend of mine. He's their general manager. That is a tough job, and in today's day and age, you know, you can kind of – you got to have an equalizer. And I think they're sort of like Georgia Tech. When Georgia Tech ran the option with Paul Johnson, they'll sort of hang in the balance, play high-scoring games, try to play keep away and execute, and that wins football games these days. And defenses do not like defending that kind of thing. They don't like it at all.
I'm not going to tell you the year because it ain't none of your business. But Texas played Oklahoma, and I was in school out at Abilene, and I went to the game a long time ago, and so I ain't going to tell you the year. But they did play in Dallas. And Oklahoma won 20, I think it's 20-0 something. Talk a little bit about the rivalry. Does the rivalry stay there on Texas's side when Texas plays Oklahoma and Dallas?
This weekend, yeah, I think Texas will win. Oklahoma is not. This isn't the high-scoring offense they had last year. They're more of a throwback SEC team that's going to have to grind it out and play defense. You know, Texas probably hadn't played since Michigan hadn't played a defense as good as Oklahoma. So that game sometimes gets pretty much high scoring most of the time. This year it may be a little different. It may be a classic throwback slobber knock at SEC game if Oklahoma's got a chance. But I think Texas has been kind of pointing to this game. Yeah, their quarterback's coming back. We saw with A&M last week. Sometimes we sit there and want to just stick with the backup, and the starter comes back, and he's pretty doggone good. So I think they'll win. I think they'll win that game. Oklahoma's had success in that. They'll beat them again at some point, but this is kind of Texas's year, I think, to
Yeah, I agree. I agree, Big.
Take the club to Oklahoma.
I agree. Florida's at Tennessee. A lot of talk, a lot of yakking about Lane Kiffin coming over there with a $14 million contract a year, and if they were to make a change in a contract that would last 9 years and be paid regardless of how they did. I don't like to see that personally. I think you can comment on that if you want to. The other thing I'll say in line with that, and I want you to correct me. They paid a lot of money for the Tennessee quarterback. I think he's good. I don't think he's great. And you may say, Wimp, you're dead wrong. I don't know something about him that I don't like him as well. So comment on those two things.
Yeah, I mean, when you're playing Chattanooga and Kent State, NC State, terrible. You look pretty good, but the last two games they have not, and he hasn't done what I think a lot of folks thought in that system. I thought sort of like, well, he can throw, and most importantly, he can run, and he can kind of dart out of there. But there's some awareness situations there, like running out of bounds, like he did, instead of throwing it away and stopping the clock, that a lot of young quarterbacks go through. But yeah, I was surprised. Arkansas hadn't necessarily. They played pretty good defense this year.
They did.
Improved.
Yeah.
But they played great. I mean, I didn't expect them to shut Tennessee down like that. And so, they've got to have good quarterback play in that system, Coach, because as we saw, the defense is good, but it's going to wear down. If time of possession in that game was 35 minutes for Arkansas with a Bobby Petrino play called offense. So, and a backup quarterback. So that was something else. As far as Tennessee and Florida goes, Lane Kiffin, I think the question is, do you take that job? I mean, you spent all this time rebuilding your rep, rebuilding your winning ways after getting fired at Southern Cal, and then whatever happened at the end of Alabama, and you're winning now. You're a hero. You're happy in Oxford. Nobody's won at Florida except Steve Spurrier and Urban Meyer. And that's it. Dan Mullen won a little bit, and he had some good teams. McElwain won a couple of divisions when the division was way down. They all got fired in year 3 after winning big, or year 3 and year 4. So, man, I mean, do you really want to go down there no matter what the money is? And then all of a sudden, where are you at if you get fired from Florida?
Yeah.
You
got a pocket full of money, but no place to go.
Mm-hmm. And maybe that there's something to be said for that. But, I mean, these guys are all competitors. As far as Tennessee and Florida go this weekend, it's interesting because look at the history of this rivalry. Since Steve Spurrier got to Florida in 90, Florida is 26-8. And I mentioned Spurrier and Meyer are the only ones to win down there. But every other coach that's been there has beaten Tennessee.
Yeah.
I mean, so it was a 5-point game 2 years ago. And Florida was a losing football team. So that's one where the other team sort of owned the other team. And so if I'm Tennessee, I'm looking to hopefully play a really good football game Saturday and win. I mean, Florida's defense is not that good, but I didn't think Arkansas could slow them down either.
Kentucky was maybe a little bit of surprise beating Ole Miss there. People think they're a 14-point favorite against Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's option play was great against Alabama. Alabama let it be that way in some ways. But I think this Kentucky team continues to be pretty decent.
They're good on defense, especially in the front. And you think about coaching, Mark Stoops will probably love the old defensive guys, him and Brad White. They love stuff like that. They're pulling out tape of the wing tee from high school. They're pulling out New Mexico State film. They're like, man, I mean, I think defensive guys sort of get off sometimes, especially when a team gets your attention like Vanderbilt did. Now, can you teach? I mean, it's a good thing they were off last week because I think that, it's hard to rep this in practice, what they do. And so they've had 2 weeks to prepare. I don't know that they're going to cover the 14. I think they can win the game. I don't know that Mandy's going to score 40 on them. Yeah. But Vanderbilt's games this year, my prediction is they're going to all be pretty close. They're not going to get blown out. They're probably not going to blow anybody out. Maybe one or two teams, but they're all going to be close. So Kentucky's got to be prepared to play a close game.
Well, the talk next week, if Alabama were to beat South Carolina, will be a big stink about the Alabama going to Tennessee, because that's not a very good place for Alabama to go, in my opinion. But yeah, we'll get the South Carolina game. Mike Shula is coming back as offensive coordinator with a quarterback that's not great, and Mike did a better job here, and they hire, and I'm not going to get into it with our people. I will if they want me to, but Mike Shula, when Al Moore hired him, had never even overseen a practice, much less coach. Yeah. And it was a reason for that, because Mike Price fell on his feet. So anyway, I won't get into that. I may get into it before the show's over. I appreciate you being on, and tell everybody exactly where we can find you.
All right, yeah, download the Chief Sports app. We got a new JC and Morgan this week. Certainly talked a lot of Alabama, Vanderbilt, college football playoffs, some big picture stuff. Told them the App Store on Apple if you have an iPhone, and if you have a Android, it's on Google Play. So check us out. Me and Mike Morgan from ESPN and SEC Network. I guess we asked enough. We asked enough good questions. I hope. I think you were great. I appreciate it. Thanks. Hey, no problem, Coach. Y'all have a great day. See you. All right, thank you. All righty, I guess it's time for the commercial.
Yes, sir. We'll go ahead and take a break here. When we come back, we'll do another quick little kind of a lightning segment, and then we'll go get ready for the top of the hour break and get Jack Crow on. You're listening to Tide 100.9 and 1230 WTBC, your home of Alabama Crimson Tide Sports.
Go inside the Alabama Crimson Tide with the Gary Harris Show.
Hey, everybody, it's Gary Harris. Thursday morning at 9 a.m. on the Gary Harris Show. We are packed and ready to coach Ellis Johnson. Man, he breaks down SEC football like no other, and we'll have a lot to break down. Plus, D. Orlando Ledbetter with the Falcons report. Atlanta is on a roll in the NFC South, and Jeff Spiegel will join us as well. Plus your phone calls. That's the Gary Harris Show, Thursday morning at 9 a.m.
Catch the Gary Harris Show Monday through Friday, 9 to 11 a.m. on Tide 100.9 and Tide100.9.com.
Tide 100.9 Traffic.
Tuscaloosa traffic now from the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center. We are getting a report of a fender bender on Highway 82 westbound at Daffron Road, and this will affect your commute. And also, we're not doing too bad on McFarland. It is actually starting to get some volume as you rush to work. We're in prime time now, so McFarland eastbound onto
Rise, 600 Johnny Stallings Drive from 5 to 8 p.m. on Friday, October 27th. Tickets can be purchased in advance for $10. The event continues with free admission from 8 to 11 a.m. on Saturday, October 28th.
Road tripping, business travel, or bringing your car in for repairs. All great reasons to rent a Toyota at Tuscaloosa Toyota. You can rent the latest Toyota models for a day, a week, or a weekend. Every Toyota rental car comes with 24 hours roadside assistance.
Hi, with new Febreze car, I know my car's going to smell amazing, which keeps my driver rating right where it belongs. Picking up, Oscar!
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
The weather will stay dry through the weekend and through next week. The sky's sunny today. Tuscaloosa's high 82. Clear and cool tonight, the low 53. For tomorrow and Saturday, lots of sunshine both days. Highs between 78 and 81. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 58 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
Tide 100.9. For more coverage of Alabama football, visit us at Tide100.9.com or download the free Tide 100.9 app.
The Crimson Tide will not be denied.
Welcome back to Inside the Locker Room. Coach, that was a good interview you had there with J.C. Sherbert. Real glad I got to hear that this morning there. We're going to go ahead and head back to the commercials here, head back to break here. When we come back on the other side at the top of the hour, we're going to hear from Jack Crow, former head coach of Jacksonville State. So that ought to be a really good interview there. Jack Crow will stay with us here through about 8:30 this morning, and then we'll take your phone calls right here on Tide 100.9 and 1230 WTBC, your home of Alabama Crimson Tide Sports.
Here's what's trending on the Tuscaloosa thread.
Good Thursday morning. 2 16-year-old girls from Fayette have been reported missing. Deandra Heck and Felina Ortiz were last reportedly seen Sunday night in the area of Temple Avenue North in Fayette. The Alabama Law Enforcement Agency has not said if the pair were together. Call Fayette Police or Aaliyah if you have information. Click TuscaloosaThread.com for more local news, sports, and weather coverage all throughout the day. It is absolutely free. Don Hartley, Town Square Media, Tuscaloosa.
From the Fox Sports Studios in Los Angeles, here's Eddie Garcia.
In postseason baseball, all 4 divisional series were in action. One of them has wrapped up in the National League. The Mets close out the Phillies with a 4-1 win. New York was down 1-0 in the 6th inning when Francisco Lindor stepped up and blasted a grand slam home run to get the win. Jose Quintana tossed 5 shutout innings for the Mets. He and 3 relievers combining, allowing 1 run on 4 hits as New York takes the series 3-1 to advance to the National League Championship Series. Dodgers stay alive with an 8-0 win in San Diego over the Padres. LA getting home runs from Mookie Betts, Will Smith, and Gavin Lux. LA used 8 different pitchers to shut out San Diego and even the series at 2-2. A deciding Game 5 will be Friday in LA. In the American League, the Yankees edged the Royals 3-2 in Kansas City. New York's Giancarlo Stanton had a go-ahead solo homer in the 8th inning. He also had an RBI double. New York takes a 2-1 series lead. Tigers shut out the Guardians 3-0. Detroit using 6 split pitchers to shut out Cleveland, limiting them to 6 hits. Detroit leads that series 2-1.
It's the Tide 100.9 30K workday payday. Woo! Win cash every weekday 8 to 5. Here's this hour's cash code.
141. Again, that's 141. The code is 141.
Enter that code now on the Tide 100.
Visit us now and save big and discover why so many are switching to BMW. BMW of Tuscaloosa. Take your dreams for a drive.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
The weather will stay dry through the weekend and through next week. The sky's sunny today. Tuscaloosa's high 82. Clear and cool tonight, the low 53. For tomorrow and Saturday, lots of sunshine both days. Highs between 78 and 81. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 59 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
Inside the locker room with former Crimson Tide basketball coach Wimp Sanderson and his son, former SEC and ACC assistant basketball coach Barry Sanderson. It's time to take you inside the locker room on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Welcome back to Inside the Locker Room. That was a great first hour there. Coach Wimp Sanderson had a good interview with J.C. Sherbert, helping us break down that Alabama and South Carolina game. Now we're going to go on back to the phone lines here, and we're going to talk with Jack Crow, former head coach of Jacksonville State. Coach Crow, how you doing this morning?
Hey, Jack.
I'm good. Hey.
Appreciate you being on. I appreciate you being on. I need a offensive guy on.
Hey, let me get in something here real quick, Wimp. I am just walking out of Salem's Diner, and if nobody that's in Homewood, Alabama, nobody knows, that's Ed Salem's Salem Diner. Yeah. And this is where I always used to could find Mike Slive. He ate breakfast here every morning.
Yep.
And this is where the brain trust was for taking the SEC for another level. So I'm bringing you the vibe.
You got the vibes of SEC at the very top.
At the very top. And I told everybody in there I'm going to talk to Wimp. You know what? Because you don't even have to speak up to be heard. It's so damn small. But I told everybody I was walking out because when I walk out, they said, Coach, where are you going? And I let them all know where I was going. So I'm sure they'll be tuned in.
Yeah, well, good. I hope they are. We go to a football team with Alabama. I am certainly not one to know whether they were ready to play or not. I think as I have always said that mental is to physical like 3 is to 1. I've always believed that. If you're not mentally ready to play, you're not going to be very good. I don't know whether that the defensive alignments, they said, one of the guys said the defensive alignments came in too late through the headsets. Talk a little bit about what happened defensively. I don't care, both sides of the football. They were good offensively, Alabama was. What happened defensively against Vanderbilt?
Well, number one, I'd say you were dealing with an offensive head coach, and really there's a change going on there.
Yeah.
Because offensive head coaches are different than defensive head coaches.
Right.
I knew that against every coach I ever coached against. There was always that person in disguise like Chan Gailey was, who was calling the plays on offense, but he was thinking defensively. And you'll find there's some of those damn guys out there.
Yeah.
But I will say this to the comment about being ready to play. It's all a matter of degrees. It's not they were or they weren't, okay? To what degree? Because, no 2 Saturdays, no 2 game days do you call it the same level of mental preparedness, emotional preparedness. So, it certainly wasn't an A game. Now, whether it was a D game or a B game, it wasn't. But, you're friggin' asking for the goddamn impossible if you think they're going to turn around after that game against Georgia and bring
That's very hard.
That. I mean, it's
terribly hard.
Hell, I don't think it's possible. When I was at Clemson,
I agree.
We played Virginia, and we had beat them like 52-0.
Yeah.
And we were fixing to walk into a dang buzzsaw. And I was as scared as I've ever been. We were fixing to walk up there and get our goddamn butts beat. And if they hadn't left a receiver uncovered at the end of the game, we were beat. I mean, they gave it to us because there's just that point. There's only so much you can do. I mean, so you don't blame this on a coach. I mean, those are human nature things. Hell, it'd been the same emotional state if Nick had been there. So don't blame that on the coach. But you do have sort of the immersion of an offensive generated, because the offense had been on field half the time. They'd beat them by goddamn 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
They just, so you can characterize this as a defensive issue, not a head coaching issue, not an offensive issue. But Wimp, the reality of it is there's 3 teams in the country that are dedicated to this style of offense. The other 2 are 5-0. It's a problem. That's Army and Navy.
Yeah.
And so, but I do think as I watched the game, I really felt like some things were exposed that really sort of come about when you have a new way of doing things. They were seeing things I don't think that they saw on film, and they were having to make adjustments. And I mean, really serious adjustments, not just, not just the usual adjustments. There were some things coming at them. They had to make big time adjustments, and you're seeing the vulnerability of a couple of things. One is like pitching in baseball. Defense travels. It's like pitching travels, hitting doesn't.
Sure it does.
I think the same thing. I think the same thing's true in basketball to some extent.
Oh, sure it is. Yeah.
So you just had almost a perfect damn storm, to be honest with you, and you throw into it that you had a quarterback that if you take the stats out of it, somebody that's made like a Heisman Trophy guy. I mean, he's made like he ain't gonna win the Heisman Trophy, and he ain't gonna put up numbers. But that damn one-of-a-kind difference maker that the Heisman represents, I mean, you had a Heisman game out of that goddamn quarterback now. Friggin' Heisman game.
Yeah.
So, the best thing I could say, I mean, I got more Alabama friends than Auburn fans, and I just they let a couple of Auburn guys come into Salem's Diner, but there's 30 pictures of former Alabama football players on the wall in there, and I got one saying: forget it. It can make you better, and that's the only way you can look at it.
You got to turn the page.
Yeah. Oh man, and it could be. It could be, at the end of the season, they look back, best thing that happened to us. But I can tell you that the change was evident, okay? I think it was I think it was obvious this is an offensive run program. Offenses, don't travel as well as defenses. This defense put up against really having to have tremendous communication between every coach and every player. It just wasn't there. Because,
and I despise the transfer portal, but I want to give the Vanderbilt coaches credit to push their ego aside and bring in not only a quarterback they thought was good, but the head coach along with him and the offensive coordinator along with him to try to get their program back a little bit better. And I got to give them credit for that. They pushed their ego aside and did that, and it certainly paid off.
Absolutely. I know Jerry Kill. Jerry and I shared some time together. We have, when we had the same opponent when he was at Northern Illinois, we shared some opponents from time, over the years. We were both just, long-time guys, but I got a chance. We were both Coach of the Year, Region Coach of the Years at a AFCA banquet, and I could tell, I said, God dang, this is a triple option thinking guy, which where I came from, I didn't know that he thought it. It was like a Barry Switzer.
Yeah.
I mean, he don't run the wishbone, but he is going to break you down defensively. And if you can't play the quarterback, you can't play with an extra guy when the quarterback starts on it. He was going to get you. The thing he did in this game now that I hadn't watched Vanderbilt play, so I don't know if they did it against anybody else. But when they moved into a 3-back set, they basically added an extra blocker to the assignments on defense. And when you have one on the pitch, one on the quarterback, this guy's on the zone, inside zone play. I mean, that's 3 people. And if they, they can all take care of their assignment. When you plug somebody in that we used to call the extra blocker, and he blocks that one guy because you got them spread out sort of one-on-one situations, and now you apply the guy that's got the quarterback and you bring that third guy into the backfield and you go block that guy, they start losing their eye discipline because they all start trying to make up for it, but they don't have the key for it. Because you got to have a way of. I didn't think they ever expected it, or they ever adjusted to the 3-back stuff. And sometimes, sometimes the extra blocker was actually more in a slot or a wing position. But I mean, it was schemed up, and like I said, Army and Navy are doing the same thing, and ain't nobody come close to stopping Army and Navy yet.
No, they're so disciplined. EAB played Navy, and it was, they were very, very, skilled and knew what they were doing. So it's, down at the other end of the state, Auburn, a little bit of a problem with the head coach saying one thing that was run, the quarterback coming back saying something else, which doesn't need to be said publicly, I don't think. There's enough problems down there, quarterback-wise, to make any statements like that. I think probably the biggest mistake that Auburn made was not going out and taking all the money they've got and buying them what they needed. That's what Miami did, and Miami bought the right guy. And that's what Arkansas did when they got Green. They went to Boise State, and they got the right guy. I've talked about the offensive coordinator at Arkansas. He's not bad. So I think in Auburn's situation, the mistake is made to feel like that the team is going to be fine. The people surrounding the quarterback are going to be good. The quarterbacks are going to be good. And for whatever reason, that's the reason I'm asking you the question. They gamble a lot on offense with their passing. Go ahead.
Well, I think what you saw that was a lack of communication, if you want to call it that, between the quarterback and the head coach. That's unforgivable for me personally, because I was in the same way. I was an offensive coordinator that coached the quarterback, that became head coach, how much is your hand in that? How much is your hand not in that? Can you be a Spurrier where you actually are managing the quarterback and the game through the quarterback? Yeah, you can be a Spurrier, but you better go meet with that guy. What Spurrier had the gift of was great assistant coaches, defensive coordinators that were head coaches, and he could literally have a 30-minute meeting with them, and he could turn himself totally, and he didn't have the player management issues you got today. Well, I think they've mismanaged offense. So you can call names however you want to, but think about this. Offensive coordinator coaches the running backs. The head coach calls the plays, and maybe they do it together, but he controls the play calling. And there's a guy named Ken Austin that coaches the quarterbacks. Now, that is just wrought with problems.
Yeah. Yeah, you got
and
too
Ken
many.
Austin is that. Yeah.
Well, you sit there as the offensive coordinator, and Pat Dye couldn't spell cat on that end of the field. He just didn't. He was at Alabama for 8 years with me, and I watched all the practices. If he had to spell cat, he couldn't give you the second letter as far as offense was concerned. Now, what he could do is that he could fuss at you when offensive plays didn't work, because he wanted to know why they didn't work, how come they didn't work, but it was face to face. It wasn't public. Right. It wasn't public, and right. it was face to face, and it was in the offensive meetings. If you had offensive meetings, that's the way that worked. Yeah. It wasn't worked the way it's worked out down there now.
Literally, at the end of the day, past the passion on the sideline that people saw, though, there never was my feeling that he ever questioned my play calling, ever.
Really?
No, I mean, anybody could debate whether a play worked or not. You just saw it didn't, okay? Okay, get over it. It happens. But, we made a decision for me to go to Clemson, and I think he stand up and had a cheer when I did. So let me just leave it at that. I think he was tired of me, real tired of me. But he never undermined me. And I think, in effect, whether it's malicious, and I don't think it is, people just because of their own competitiveness and their own way. I mean, who spends the most time with that quarterback? Ken Austin. Okay? Where does he get that information?
Yeah, he doesn't do anything during the games, but he spends all the time with the quarterback during the practice.
So how do you have a communication problem in an organization? That's the way you have a communication problem. And in my opinion, I think the guy could have won 5 football games, the quarterback down. Could have, if he was managed right. Is he the difference maker? No. Could he win every one of those 5 games? You take 5 turnovers out of that, and every one of those turnovers was a management issue. It was a wide receiver and the quarterback exactly on the same page. I've seen a bunch of that stuff. They're not. Where he's going to cut, how he's going to come out of the cut, it's sloppy as hell. I'll just be honest with you. And after a while, the quarterback starts losing confidence, creates indecision. He's only got so much time to hold that goddamn ball. He's got to let it go with a confidence of where that guy is going to be. And they're just other issues. I'm a little short of blaming this, and the solution is it's the wrong quarterback. That always is a cop-out to me to a certain extent. Could they have a better one? Yes. Could they have gone 5-0 with the one we've got? If I have any ability to go put myself in those situations, I would say they could be 5-0 with that quarterback. Now, Georgia, no. They could be 5-0 coming out of those 5 home games. To me, it was just they're not coaching a boy worth a damn. I'll just be honest with you.
Yeah. Well,
we had a guy named Randy Campbell that won 20 games.
Yeah, I know Randy.
If you remember, and you know, we never put him in situations he wasn't prepared for. And Randy was in the middle of the talent scale. He was in the middle. He wasn't bad. He wasn't great. He was in the middle. But I mean, the guy was MVP. You got to manage these guys. You got players around him. You got a running back behind him that's totally underused. I mean, and I told you this before, Wimp. You did it to me again, God dang it. This is not something that's probably very good for me to be. I've started talking to you like it's just me and you, and I realize.
Well, that's all right. So good. It makes me smart.
What can I tell you? I don't want to have anybody from Auburn contact me about nothing. I'm saying
I'm looking to be smart. It makes me smart.
All right, whatever. You know as much about football as 90% of people that think they know a lot.
I don't know anything about it, but
whatever. Whatever.
Where does Georgia, the committee? Georgia has got Tennessee at home. They go to Alabama. They got to go to Ole Miss. They got the worst cotton picking schedule you have ever seen in your life against very, very good team. Texas is playing Vanderbilt, Mississippi State. Is the committee going to take notice of that? Georgia could get their little fannies beat again a time or two. They may not. They're well coached, but they go to tough places. Tennessee comes to theirs. Is the committee going to be smart enough to realize that not only do you look at non-conference games in this 12-team playoff, and most of them are playing weak non-conference teams. I know Texas played Michigan, but outside of that, nobody's really played anybody very tough. They're all trying to get wins. Is the committee going to be smart enough to realize the strength of a Georgia schedule versus the strength of a Texas schedule when they try to put the 12 together?
I have to believe that's their job.
Yeah.
And whether, you know, if they can take all the bias out of it, I think it's going to be pretty clear what that strength of schedule as we see it today is got to be. I don't know how they rank how each one of them factors in. They sit there with a formula, and it's like any algorithm. It's only as good as the evidence that supports the algorithm. Not that they use that word, but that's basically, how it comes together. But I'll just make this bold forecast for you. SEC is probably going to get 4 teams in. I don't think there's anybody. I don't think Alabama, Tennessee, Georgia, or Texas have taken themselves out of being in the playoffs. And my guess is none of them will. My guess. And I'll make this forecast. The team that gets in at the 4th one has probably got a better chance than the team that gets in as the first one.
Yeah.
If we go back and look at basketball, we go to these tournament-oriented sports. It's just getting in, and it's how you playing then. And the challenge really is each one of these programs, are they going to be better this week than they were last week? Yeah. Are they going to be better in week 7? Are they going to be better in week 8 than they were in week 7? Because this ain't being decided now as much as we want to talk about it. They're going to remember November, okay? They're going to remember November. And if you can still be making your team better in November, it doesn't matter what happened in September and October.
Yeah. We'll see what happens.
So Alabama, in my book, they need to forget what happened. And they have not, in my opinion, dampened their opportunities to win a national championship. They need a pure, badass pass rusher.
Yeah.
They just somebody can come off the weak side, that somebody's got to keep a back end and chip. And I don't know if they got one of those on the team. I don't know their people. But they need somebody that can disrupt like the guy at Tennessee. They're going to get that test. But let me tell you what, they scored 14 points against Arkansas. So does that tell you offense don't travel?
Yep. That's right. Well, I really appreciate you being on. I know you got plenty to do, and I was dying to get you on today because I just needed you, and I appreciate it. We'll visit again.
I appreciate you.
All right, thanks.
Man, thanks for having me.
All right.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
That was Coach Jack Crow working with Coach Wimp Sanderson. Coach, I think we're going to take a break here. We'll combine these breaks since we.
I'll take the break. Combine the breaks, and I want to give the Bryant Bank ad after that, and then we'll have callers call in. Hopefully, we got some callers left.
Yes, sir. We'll take your phone calls right here at 205-342-9904. We are phone call ready the rest of the way, the final 30 minutes of the program right here on Tide 100.9 and 1230 WTBC, your home of Alabama Crimson Tide Sports.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
Tuscaloosa traffic now from the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center. Well, we do have our share of delays now. Volume picking up on McFarland in the usual spot. And that, of course, is right around that Lurleen Wallace intersection. So you actually have some extensions here. McFarland in both directions between Watermelon and 43. You can expect delays.
But I knew one of you was my soulmate. Ah, the scent of Gain Flings. Try Gain Flings with OxyBoost and Febreze.
From the University of Alabama, this is Crimson Tide Today. It's a daily update on Bama sports and it's brought to you by The Good Feet Store, a proud supporter of the Alabama Crimson Tide. For over 25 years, The Good Feet Store has been helping people get back to the life they love without their feet getting in the way. Start your journey at goodfeet.com. Hello again, everybody. I'm Roger Hoover. On Thursday's edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR, we'll be joined by Alabama running back Justice Haynes.
I just want to see I want them to see an improved group, a physical group. As far as the offensive wise, efficient, explosive, making the most of all our opportunities. Defense, a tenacious, vicious, attacking defense. And I just want the fans to see that, we're going to be all right. We're going to be all right. I promise you that.
Is this defense pretty hard to practice against? I mean, I know it makes you better.
Oh, 100%. Spring ball, going at it. That's all we do is one-on-ones, ones versus ones. We doing that. Fall camp, good on good all day. So going against that defense, we got to earn everything we get. And that defense is tremendous. Got some studs on that defense. Some guys that are going to be household names, and
I'll have more in a moment.
This is Christian Miller for The Good Feet Store. I know from playing football at Alabama and in the NFL that if you have foot, knee, hip, or back pain, it can be a huge challenge. The Good Feet Store is designed to personally fit you with arch supports that alleviate and even eliminate your pain altogether. Try them before you buy them. They're in your free, no obligation, personalized fitting, and you can wear them home the same day. So if you're looking to improve your game, the Good Feet Store has you covered. Stop in for a free, personalized fitting today. Roll to victory at goodfeet.com. That's goodfeet.com. Roll Tide.
If you missed last night's edition of Hey Coach and the Kalen DeBoer Show, catch it on demand on the Alabama Insider Podcast. Crimson Tide Today is brought to you by The Good Feet Store. Crimson Tide Today is a production of the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
Tuscaloosa traffic now from the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center. Well, we do have our share of delays now. Volume picking up on McFarland in the usual spot. And that, of course, is right around that Lurleen Wallace intersection. So you actually have some extensions here. McFarland in both directions between Watermelon and 43. You can expect
for Town Square Media Tuscaloosa radio websites. Fill out the Advertise Here form. Put the power of Town Square Media to work for your business.
A national championship team covering a national championship team. The best sports talk in the state. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Welcome back to Inside the Locker Room. Coach, you want to go ahead and tell them about Bryant Bank?
Yeah, I'll tell them about Bryant Bank, and then we open up the phone lines for you to call in. I hope you will call in. I know we've had it where you couldn't, but hopefully somebody will call in. Bryant Bank with 4 locations in Tuscaloosa, several locations in Birmingham, throughout the state, is an outstanding bank. I bank with them, been doing it for a long, long time. They're very, very helpful to me when I walk in. The head banker is always very nice. The place is very nice, and the people surrounding him who help you will do a good job with you. You can bank online very easily. Your money is safe whether you have a business account or a private account, or both. They will do an excellent job in being sure that your money is there to stay. So if you need help through a drive-through window, or if you want to go by there personally, you can go to Bryant Bank, and I think you'll be well pleased. I promise you that this is said, but also it's said by somebody who uses Bryant Bank, and I do so. Okay, we welcome your calls. If you want to call in and talk about what's been said today, or anything that you think, we'll be glad to take them. Have anybody calling or not?
We got 2 phone calls on the line right now, Coach. Right. Let's go ahead, jump out to the phone lines here, and let's talk with Tom to get things started. Tom, how you doing today?
I'm glad Tom called, because I was afraid here by myself today. He wasn't going to call because we didn't have a chance to fuss with Barry.
Tom, you doing all right this morning?
Coach, I don't really fuss at Barry, but I try to keep him.
I like for you to fuss at him. I like it. I was bragging. I was bragging on you.
No. Hey, look, can I call you back? I got kind of a handle going on right now, and I really need to call you back.
Okay, that's fine.
Not a problem, right, Tom. We'll get you back in here as soon as you call back. We got one more call on here, Coach. Let's talk with Digger in Louisiana. Digger, how you doing this morning?
Digger, it's about time. How come you didn't call yesterday? You called too late.
I tried. I was busy, man. I'm juggling between y'all and the courthouse. Horrible.
Well, you heard me today downplay Texas' schedule versus Georgia's, did you?
Yeah.
Now, what do you say about that? What?
I'm okay with it. Yeah, that's what it is. They do have a more difficult schedule, but the reason why I was calling, did you see the remaining schedule for A&M?
Cupcake.
Is it? You know what?
I'm about to say, listen, is it safe to say if you go to the SEC title game, both 1 and 2, is it safe to say they'll both be in the playoff? Can we agree on that?
I would say so.
Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe.
Look at that schedule with A&M. There's only one game left for them. It's LSU, and they're going to be favored in that game, and it's at home.
You got two games.
Right now.
You got 2 games. A&M is going to have to actually step up and play some real football. They host LSU October 26th, and then they host your Texas Longhorns November 30th.
Well, you know that the coach, A&M's coach is going to be coach of the year, don't you?
Maybe so. Yeah. Come on, he turned it around. I mean, it was a bad situation there, and he's going to be in a title game. Come on, think about it. If you lose to Texas and you have one loss in the SEC, and supposedly if you lose to Texas and they're still the number 1 team in the country, they're going to have an argument to say that they should be in the title game and in the playoffs. Can we agree on that? I mean, I'm not defending A&M.
Yeah, I agree.
Lordy, look at this schedule.
Yeah.
This schedule is woeful for them. Yeah. And then all they got to do is beat LSU, and they're free and clear.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? I'm being serious. That's like, wait a minute.
Yes,
A&M has a real shot here.
Yes and no, because they did lose to Notre Dame to start the year. So let's say they beat LSU but then lose to Texas. Let's say they beat Texas in the regular season but lose to them in the SEC title game. Does that put them in the college football playoff?
Well, that's why I was asking. If you're in the SEC title game, don't you think they will consider you for the playoff game?
I think they would, but again, so it depends on how the committee views it, and we'll hear from the committee here in a little under a month, because I believe the first rankings from the College Football Playoff Committee is the first Tuesday in November. But it depends. Do you view a 2-loss Texas A&M team who lost in the SEC championship better than you view a 2-loss Alabama team who didn't play in the SEC championship? Let's say Bama loses to Tennessee. All right, but they win the rest of their games: LSU, Oklahoma, Auburn, Mercer, Missouri. Mm-hmm. Do you put, if you're looking for that last spot between Texas A&M, who lost in the SEC title game, or Alabama, who lost to Vanderbilt and Tennessee on the road, what would you do?
That's just it. They're going to look at that Vanderbilt game and say, well, which is a bad loss? Loss to Notre Dame or a loss to Vanderbilt?
That is true.
Come on.
That is true. Alabama can be helped a little bit in that department depending on what Vanderbilt does the rest of the year. I think Vanderbilt's a better team than we all gave them credit for, myself included. I screwed up predicting Vanderbilt this year. I mean, this could be a bowl eligible Vanderbilt team, especially if they can beat Kentucky this weekend.
It's also the second worst loss throughout the country. Notre Dame's got the first.
Yeah.
So
I agree with that. Yeah.
Brutal.
Yeah.
And the thought of just A&M getting to the title game cringes me. So, yeah, we got an issue here.
If it's any consolation,
we're going to have to lean on LSU.
In the title game. I don't think A&M makes it. I think A&M loses to Texas that last game of the regular season, and then, it's between Ole Miss, who's a 2-loss team, Alabama, I think Alabama's probably going to be a 2-loss team going into that. A&M is a 2-loss team, but I think they would give it to A&M because Ole Miss and Bama would both have a regular or 2 SEC losses versus A&M only having the one to Texas.
Digger.
But then Texas smokes them, and
Digger, I got, as you know, I got some age on me. I was at school at Abilene Christian, and I had a roommate that wanted me to go to see the Oklahoma-Texas game in Dallas. I ain't gonna tell you the year, but I'm the only guy on this cotton picking show that's ever. I mean, I'm telling you, I think Oklahoma won 20-0, and I ain't telling you the cotton picking year. But who's got the best home field advantage there?
Look, well, Oklahoma gets a lot of recruits out of Dallas.
Okay.
And right now, as we speak, Oklahoma is the home team, and they get to bring in the recruits. Texas can't do it because they're visiting. I don't know if you knew that or not. When you go to a neutral site game,
Texas can't bring in any recruits?
No.
Really?
No, that's part of the deal. The home team gets to bring and entertain or recruit. The visiting team can't. And but lo and behold, is a lot of times the recruits is going to be between Texas and Oklahoma on who wins and who gets.
So, sometimes that's true. It's between both of them. But Oklahoma can bring in the recruits and Texas can't.
Right.
Okay.
And so keep this in mind.
Can feed them better.
Yeah. Keep this in mind. We were supposed to beat them last year, and it didn't happen. Okay, so I'm just telling you, and I'm forewarning you, do not put this game on the blue plate.
Okay.
Because it can go either way, and we're a 15-point favorite, and guess what? I'm not batting this one.
No, you stay away from that 15 points. I ain't gonna blue plate it.
I stay away from rivalry games.
Yeah.
Exactly my point. There's too much emotion involved, and I'm telling you, you have to show up.
Yeah.
Okay. If you don't show up, it's over.
Yeah.
So and come on, let's be serious about it. Look, last year we were supposed to hammer them, and they beat us. So think about it. Watch this game. It's going to be exciting.
All right. I appreciate it, Dick. Thanks for calling. Thank you.
Thank you for calling in, Dick.
I better mention the blue plate. I forgot to mention. I looked at all these games we've mentioned. This is a hard pick. This is a little bit of when you study every game and try to figure out every game. it's kind of like a golf swing. One guy tells you to do one thing with your golf swing, and somebody else tells you to do something else. I know it all. I can take a lesson or give a lesson. Doesn't make any difference. I've had so many. So I didn't really like the SEC teams particularly. I won last week with Clemson.
That was a good win.
Yeah, so I got off to a good start there. I took BYU, and BYU has to give 4 points against who forgot who they're playing now. I gone blank, but anyway, I took BYU. They're playing Arizona. Arizona's lost a couple of games. BYU's undefeated, which is a gamble. They're playing at BYU, which I think is a plus. So I think it's either 3.5 or 4 points that you have to give Arizona. So I took BYU in this game. It's a game that, I don't know, it's on Fox at, I think it's at 3 o'clock on Saturday if you want to watch it. If you want to bet it, I think it's a good bet. I don't know what prognosticators think, and you can take a look at it and see and stay away from it. I'm big on, because of basketball, I'm big on home teams. I always have been, because the home team wins so much in basketball. I guess it carries over to me in football a little bit. I'm big on that. And I'm big on teams that I think that play hard, and I think BYU does. I think their former coach got after him good. I'm big on teams where the head coach gets after their fanny if they're not playing the way they should be playing. And I think the new coach is doing a lot of that because of the old coach. So those are the reasons that I picked BYU. 4 points is, they cover the field goal, but that's about all they don't cover the touchdowns. The 4 points doesn't. So we'll see what happens. And I don't know what else that's got any more callers. We'll take them. Probably don't. But this should be, as we've talked about, interesting battle. It's time for us to get over. We got a commercial.
We got one more commercial break, Coach. Okay. We'll come back on the other side, and we'll get ready to wrap up the show and make way for the Gary Harris Show. You're listening to Inside the Locker Room right here on Tide 100.9 and 1230 WTBC, your home of Alabama Crimson Tide Sports.
Go inside the Alabama Crimson Tide with the Gary Harris Show.
Hey everybody, it's Gary Harris. Thursday morning at 9 a.m. on the Gary Harris Show. We are packed and ready to coach Ellis Johnson. Man, he breaks down SEC football like no other, and we'll have a lot to break down. Plus, D. Orlando Ledbetter with the Falcons Report. Atlanta is on a roll in the NFC South, and Jeff Spiegel will join us as well. Plus your phone calls. That's the Gary Harris Show, Thursday morning at 9 a.m.
Catch the Gary Harris Show Monday through Friday, 9 to 11 a.m. on Tide 100.9 and Tide100.9.com.
Tide 100.9 Traffic.
Tuscaloosa traffic now from the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center. It is a purpose-driven ride all around the area. We're not experiencing much of a delay in most areas at all. You'll have the intersection slow goes, as you typically do, on Lurleen Wallace, moving northbound onto McFarland. McFarland eastbound lanes mainly.
Want to earn some quick cash? Plato's Closet in West Ashley and North Charleston is stocking up on cute and cozy fall styles. We pay you on the spot for your gently used name brand clothes and accessories. Plus, while you're here, you can stock up on must-have looks for autumn. We're the go-to sustainable shopping spot for teens and young adults. So stop by Plato's Closet in West Ashley and North Charleston today and refresh your wardrobe. Plato's Closet, located in West Ashley on Sam Rittenberg Boulevard and North Charleston on Rivers Avenue.
Or enjoy free shipping to your home on purchases over $25. Your new Academy Sports and Outdoor store is located at 4610 U.S. Highway 280 in Birmingham.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
The weather will stay dry through the weekend and through next week. The sky's sunny today. Tuscaloosa's high 82. Clear and cool tonight, the low 53. For tomorrow and Saturday, lots of sunshine both days. Highs between 78 and 81. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 63 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
You're listening to Inside the Locker Room with Wimp and Barry, only on Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Welcome back to the final segment of Inside the Locker Room right here on Tide 100.9 and 1230 AM WTBC. Coach, we got one more phone call here.
Well, I want to mention Chuck Norwood, and Chuck and them do the Blue Plate special for me, and I really appreciate them doing so. So I needed to mention that.
Absolutely, Coach. Chuck Norwood does a great job helping us here with the Blue Plate special. Hit me one more time. What was your Blue Plate, Coach?
Well, I picked BYU and gave 4.
All righty, so BYU.
Who got on the line?
We've got Joshua here in Tuscaloosa. Joshua, how you doing?
I'm doing well, sir. How are you this morning? Coach, good morning to you.
Good morning. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. I got a question. That's a quick question and a statement, if that's all right.
Sure.
The question is, I've been a season ticket holder for football for 20 years,
right.
And I've always been interested as to why we never schedule a service academy to come play in Tuscaloosa. Is there a reason for that? And I figured you'd be the best person to ask.
Well, I think it all goes with the athletic director trying to get somebody they feel like. I think that would draw to some degree, but I don't know. I don't really know the answer to that. That's a darn good question. The academy came to UAB, and from what I can gather, they were as smooth and as good as any team that anybody's ever played. That they knew what they were doing from on the offensive side and didn't turn it over, didn't do anything. I think that would be a really good game to schedule, and I'll try to find out for you. But I don't really know why that hadn't occurred. Whether they not offered enough money or what the deal is. Right now, they're trying to get a really big name in here to keep the season ticket things going. Like they're going to play Ohio State one year and then go back to state, Ohio State. They're going to play Notre Dame here, but they haven't played the Service Academy, and I think it's a good question, and I'll try to find out for you.
It is out there now for Mr. Byrne to hear. So
okay.
My statement is, and I think the statute of limitations is up on this one real quick, but I had an uncle that was a ticket taker at Coleman Coliseum when I was growing up here in town.
Yeah.
And he used to sneak me in the back gate to come watch you coach basketball, sir.
Good.
And you are so appreciated, and you made a huge basketball fan out of a young man in Tuscaloosa.
Well, I'm glad you sneaked in. If I'd known you had to sneak in, I'd have gotten you a ticket.
It was more fun to sneak in. We thought we were doing something wrong.
But
thank you, and you are a state treasure, sir.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Bye.
Thank you so much for calling in, Joshua. We got one more here. We got about 2 minutes. Tony in Birmingham. Tony, how you doing today?
Hey, Tony.
I'm doing well. Good morning, Coach. Hey, Coach, what's the spread on the LSU Ole Miss game?
I believe it's 3 or 3.5.
Ole Miss is a 3.5-point favorite over LSU right now.
Yeah.
And LSU had a bye week, correct? Before this?
Correct.
Can't remember.
I think I would pick LSU in that game up, especially if there's talk of Lane Kiffin looking at Florida saying he'd go for 9 years, that's got, if we're hearing it, the players are hearing it, because no player stays off social media. I can assure you that.
Yeah,
but I don't know. I don't know if I trust either one of those teams.
Yeah, that's the reason I didn't blue plate it. I didn't know it, so I didn't blue plate it. No.
Yeah. Well, Coach, if I guessed the year, would you say near or far on the time you went to Oklahoma? Texas?
Do what now?
If I guessed the year, would you tell me if I was close or far away or not at all?
Okay, you can guess. Go ahead.
1955.
Crap on you! Hang up and go take a bath.
Love you, Coach.
You've been peeking. You're fired.
Tony, thank you so much for calling in, man.
Right.
We're going to wrap up the program here, Coach. Thank you so much for allowing me to join you this morning.
Monday.
See you on Monday. Tomorrow, here on Inside the Locker Room, Chase and I will hold down the fort for the 2-hour program. Thank you guys so much for listening to Tide 100.9 and 1230 AM WTBC. Your home for Alabama Crimson Tide sports. Up next, The Gary Harris Show.